The second video for this week is going to be on a simplifying expressions review. So basically what I did was I took problems from your assignment 2 and just changed the numbers around a little bit, changed some of the variables around. So this is going to be very similar to your assignment number 2. So you may need to come back to this video. There's no guided notes to go along with this, but it is a quick refresher video on how to simplify expressions and help you complete assignment 2. So the first section is going to be some pretty basic, pretty simple, simplifying each of the following expressions problems. So number 1 says 8x plus 12x. These are what we call like terms because they both have the same variable attached. So I can combine them together, and it's as simple as doing 8 plus 12, which is going to get us 20. So my answer here is 20x. I do ask that, some of these problems require a little bit more work. Just circle or box in your answer at the end so it's pretty easy for me to see what your solution is. Number 2, slightly more challenging. It's 7r plus r. So I'm going to rewrite this as 7r plus 1r. The coefficient, which is the number in front of the variable of r, is 1. So I can write this as 7r plus 1r. They are also like terms. So when I add 7 plus 1, I get 8r. The common mistake I see from students a lot is they'll do just 7r plus r and write 7r. I will also see students write 7rr, which is telling me we're multiplying the r's, which we're not. We're adding them together. We have 7 r's plus one more r to get a total of 8 r's. This does come with practice. It's something we saw earlier this year. It's also one of the topics that we hear a lot from the 8th grade teachers, and saying that the kids are like, oh, we've never seen that before. So I really want to make sure, since we have kind of a unique schedule right now, of looking at some of those topics that I know are going to be really important for you for next year. So number 3 involves two different variables. So you've got 9m plus 2n plus 4m plus 3n. So I'm going to reorder this. Everything's addition, so I can move the order around however I want since addition is commutative. So I'm going to move the m's next to each other and the n's next to each other. I'm going to highlight some things here. So I'm going to combine the 9m plus 4m. That's going to get me 13m. I'm going to combine the 2n plus 3n. Those are like terms, and that will get me 5n. So my final solution here will be 13m plus 5n. You don't have to have it highlighted in your paper, but it is something just to look at the different like terms that we have. Number 4, the last one, is a little more complicated because we have subtraction involved. So I do really suggest that you rewrite this as addition before you go to do the problem. So you're going to notice that I rewrote this as 3a plus 5b plus negative 6a plus negative 9b. Once everything's addition, then I can move them around to whatever order I want. And you're going to eventually get to the point where you're probably still going to need to add the opposite, but where you don't necessarily need to do this step here, where you put the like terms side by side. So I put my 3a plus negative 6a side by side since they're like terms, and my 5b and negative, uh, oh goodness, I just realized I've got 5b plus negative 9n. Let me correct that. Sometimes I make mistakes. Want to make sure to correct that here. That should say b right there. So pretend like that n is not there. This should say 5b plus negative 9b instead of 9n. My fault on that. So I've got 3a plus negative 6a, like terms side by side, and then 5b plus negative 9b. I must have forgotten to change that. The 3a plus negative 6a, feel free to use your calculators here. That's going to get me negative 3a. 3 plus negative 6 is negative 3. 5 plus negative 9 is going to get me negative 4. So my final solution is negative 3a plus negative 4b. Now, if you have negative 4b plus negative 3a, that's okay too. I did also rewrite it like this. You don't have to have this as well, but some students might write this, or you might see this as negative 3a minus 4b. It means the same thing. It's undoing adding the opposite. But again, the importance here is if it's all addition, just combine your like terms together. If it does involve subtraction, I would suggest adding the opposite, as I've done since like week 3 of the school year. So just adding the opposite right away so that you don't drop off any of those negatives. Now, I want to mix in some distributive property as well. So numbers 5 through 8 ask us to use the distributive property to rewrite each of the following as equivalent expressions. So this is where you distribute the number that's outside the parentheses into the parentheses. So in number 5, I will do 3 times u plus 3 times 7. So we're multiplying the 3 by the u. Let's see if I can add some little loopies here. 3 times the u, and we'll do 3 times the 7 here. That will get us 3u plus 21. 3 times u is 3u, 3 times 7 is 21. My hope is that you eventually get to the point where you don't need to show this step at all. In our next problems, I won't. Just go right to this final solution. Okay? Number 6, we're going to distribute the 9 into the parentheses. You can choose to add the opposite from the beginning if you want, although you don't have to with something like this. If you were to go a step further, or if there would be a lot more stuff around this, then you would want to add the opposite. But again, I'm going to distribute this 9 into the parentheses. Take 9 times b minus 9 times 4. 9 times b is 9b, 9 times 4 is 36. My final solution will be 9b minus 36. Number 7, a little bit harder here. Distribute the 5 into the parentheses. So we're going to do 5 times 3e plus 5 times 11. So this is going to get us 5 times 3e. We're allowed to multiply them even though they're not like terms. That'll be 15e. 5 times 11, of course, will get us 55. So final solution, 15e plus 55. Finally, number 8, we're going to distribute the 2 into the parentheses. So we take 2 times, whoa, I don't want the line there. 2 times 4r, let me delete that guy. Takes some playing around sometimes. 2 times 4r minus 2 times 13. 2 times 4r, of course, is going to get us 8r. 2 times 13 is going to get us 26. Final solution is 8r minus 26. Now, if you added the opposite on either of these, you might have 9b plus negative 36, 8r plus negative 26. That's fine. We are allowed to write them as equivalent expressions, meaning they're equal to each other, they're just written in different ways. The reason why this is important is numbers 9, 10, and 11, we now make things more complicated. So our first 3 questions, or first 4 questions, pretty straightforward. And we throw in some parentheses. Now we mix together 1 through 4 with 5 through 8 to get the last 3. So number 9, we have 3 and then in parentheses h plus 4 plus 5h. Step 1, make sure you distribute the 3 into the parentheses. So you've got 3 times h, which gets us 3h, 3 times 4, which is going to get us 12. So I have 3h plus 12 plus 5h. Reorder it so the 3h and 5h are side by side. We'll combine 3h and 5h together to get 8h. My final solution is 8h plus 12. Hopefully you remember that I cannot combine 8h and 12 together to get 20h. If they both had h's attached, I could. But in this case, they don't, so I just leave it as 8h plus 12. Number 10, 5 plus 8, and then in parentheses, x plus 3 minus 4x. It's really tempting to do 5 plus 8 first, but order of operations has multiplication coming before addition, and distributive property, getting rid of these parentheses, involves multiplication. So the very first thing you need to do here is distribute. So you can also add the opposite at the very beginning as well. I'll do that in my next step along with distributive property. We're getting to the point now, you're almost in 8th grade, where you can start to combine some steps together. So, add the opposite and distribute in the same step is fine. 8 times x is 8x. 8 times 3 is 24. So I've got 5 plus 8x plus 24 plus negative 4x. Here's where I added the opposite. Now I put my like terms side by side, my 8x and my negative 4x right here. My 5 and my 24, we call them constants because they don't have a variable attached. Combine my like terms, 8 plus negative 4 is going to get us 4x. And then 5 plus 24 is going to get us 29. So my final solution here will be 4x plus 29. Finally, number 11, 2 sets of parentheses. We just use the distributive property twice. So distribute the 9 into the parentheses. Take 9 times 2y, 9 times 3. Distribute the 2 into the parentheses here. Take 2 times 8y and 2 times 9. So that first set of parentheses is going to become 18y plus 27. Second set will be 16y plus 18. We're going to put our like terms, the 18y and the 16y side by side. The constants, which are also like terms side by side, 27 and 18. Ooh, not a very straight line there. 18y plus 16y is going to get us 34y. 27 plus 18 is going to get us 45. Feel free to use calculators. I made the numbers relatively simple here, but again, feel free to use a calculator to double check your work. It's really tempting to try to reorder things without distributing, but you really do need to distribute right away, which we talked about earlier this year. It's just been a while. So if you need to come back to this video and look at some of these things again, feel free to do that as you're doing assignment 2. Maybe have it up as you're working on it on paper, whether it's a printed copy or just on notebook paper. But again, this is one of those topics, and I know moving forward is going to be really important for 8th grade math. If you take algebra at the high school, you're definitely going to see a lot of this. And if you go ahead and take geometry, which even if you don't like math, geometry is a very different kind of math. Some of you who don't like this kind of stuff might like geometry. It does have this involved, but it is a very different topic. It was one of my least favorites, but sometimes students find that they enjoy geometry, whereas they may not have enjoyed algebra as much. Thanks for listening. And again, from here, you want to go ahead and do assignment number 2.